my opinion on creative testing has changed, numerous times over my time in UA. But I think right now what we're focused on is trying to find scalable assets. Okay. Right? I think like that's our main thing. Like we had been going with a model of A/B testing everything, trying to get some level of significance, and then rolling those out into our BA campaigns. But what we're finding is that if you're able to find that incremental winner in terms of whatever you're measuring towards, whether it's conversion rate, whether it's IPM, that's not always going to be the most scalable.
It's 4 a.m. and we're rolling the dice. Matej drops knowledge made of golden eyes. Felix with ads making those coins rise. Jack up designs, worlds chasing the sky. We're the 2.5 gamers, the midnight crew, talking UA adverts and game design too. Matej, Felix, Shaka bringing the insight. We're rocking those vibes till the early daylight. Matej, UA, master eyes on the prize, tracking data through the cyberspace skies. Felix stacks dollars like a wizard in disguise. Jacob's crafted realms lift us to the highs. 2.5 gamers talking smack. Slow hockey stick, got your back. Ads are beautiful, they light the way. Click it fast, don't delay.
Make me look like a bummer. Like so under drag.
Okay, so this is a very special episode because we are doing a special episode, but it's a very special episode because you have MAU. We are doing this again, Misplay. So, my name is Matej Lančarič, I'm the host, and then we have Noa and Brett. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Can you introduce yourself and then
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for having us. I'm Noa Gutterman. I'm the Vice President of User Acquisition here at Misplay, which means I oversee all of our paid UA and all of our creative. So those two teams fused under me when I joined Misplay. I'm relatively new. I joined about 6 months ago. And this is my first rewarded gaming, actually my first gaming company period. So I'm about 6 months in. I'm learning a lot. This space is so interesting and so different than everything else I've ever done before. And I'm incredibly lucky to get to work with people like Brett, who are well versed in the world of gaming and are teaching me everything I need to know.
Awesome. Nice. Yep. Brett here, senior manager on the user acquisition team at Misplay, overseeing all things UA, but specific focus in global markets, creative strategy, modeling and forecasting, signal building and optimization. And yeah, I'm getting to work alongside Noa, which has been incredible since she joined the team just a few short months ago. So yeah, learning a lot.
Nice. So there's a word on the street, there's something new happening in Misplay. I heard it's all about iOS. Can you unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much we're allowed to share, but yeah, I mean, we're definitely pretty excited about the opportunity, finally having platform parity across Android and iOS. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely an exciting time. More to come as things mature. But no, I don't know if you have anything to add to that. But.
Yeah, I think the world of rewarded gaming has really lived in Android primarily. And that's because, as we all know, the App Store folks have made it a little challenging to bring rewarded gaming to iPhone. And
to say the least.
Yeah, totally. And luckily things have changed a little bit in the last couple of years. We've seen some really big players enter the space and really make it work for them on iPhone. And so for the last couple of years at Misplay, we've been figuring out what Misplay could look like on iPhone. We have an incredible product and engineering team who've really worked tirelessly to bring the magic of Misplay for Android to Misplay for iPhone. Because this podcast, although we're recording live, it'll probably take a couple days to edit it. We think our iOS app will be live in the App Store by the time you are all seeing this. So if you have heard of Misplay, but maybe have never been able to use it because you are an iPhone user, please pull up your phone right now and go to the App Store and install it.
Big
yeah. Very nice. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit challenges of
Yeah, well, I think aside from just getting on the App Store, which in itself is Noah alluded to a little bit about. I think overall, I think iOS is definitely going to be a challenge on multiple fronts. I think the first piece to as we all measurement is a complete. I've seen it done well. I've seen it done. So we're just kind of starting the journey. So we're approaching it with mentality at this point. So I think when it comes to setting up scan schemas, when it comes to what types of partners we're going to work with, I think we have some good hypotheses and places to start as we journey.
Yeah, I think the challenge has been that the App Store generally has not loved the rewarded piece of rewarded gaming. And we figured out how to bring the magic of rewarded gaming through Misplay to the App Store in a way that is compliant with policy. And what that will mean from a product perspective is we're really going to continue to evolve Misplay, not only to match with the platform that it's on, but also to really make it a bigger rewarded player in the space. So that means that really looking at all of our product offerings and saying, how can we bring more of this like magic that we have with rewarding users for doing something that they already love to do? How can we bring that to other verticals? So I don't want to spoil too much because we have some exciting product releases coming out.
Just the teaser.
Yes, just the teaser is how do we bring the magic of rewarded gaming and our users who absolutely love getting rewarded for playing games they would have already played? How do we bring more of that magic to other products?
Okay, and then you kind of touched that with iOS, and what's the kind of UA strategy with iOS? Can you share a bit?
Yeah, as I said, I think we're going to take a lot of what we know has worked well on Android, but we're going to have to start doing it. I think we're relying a lot on SRNs in the beginning. I've done iOS at kind of different stops in the past, so I've seen really good success using Facebook, a little bit on Google, but then also on the opposite side too, still kind of making use of probabilistic attribution where we can, right? So the DSPs that still allow it, SDK networks. We have a pretty robust UA stack right now on Android, so I think we'll have a lot of opportunities and a lot of optionality. So
if you say robust UA stack,
oh shit! Yeah.
It's called no bullshit for a reason.
Yeah.
No, seriously, what's the
I think that I'm approaching iOS with a very healthy amount of skepticism. And what I mean when I say that is I do not want to assume that anything that worked for us on Android is going to work for us on iOS, both because of privacy and changes, but also I think an iOS customer is in many ways like pretty fundamentally different than an Android customer, right? They typically have more money. They typically are willing to spend more money in mobile games. I think they have different purchasing behavior. They will have probably never seen ads for Misplay because we've been really intentional to only serve ads on Android only spaces. So we're introducing this brand to a consumer essentially for the first time, and they may react very differently than our Android consumers. So I really want to encourage the team to question everything, to treat this almost like an entirely new brand within a brand. So we're going to look at all of our creative value props differently. Are different ones resonating for iOS users than for Android users? We're going to look at our platforms differently. We're not going to take anything as a guaranteed or a certain. But one of the things that I'm most excited about with having Misplay for iPhone is that it opens up marketing opportunities for us that we've never been able to tap into before. So connected television, streaming audio, streaming radio, eventually down the road, probably in 2026 for us, direct mail, digital out of home. We haven't touched any of those services because we can't guarantee that only Android users would see those. And so we've really been a bottom of a funnel marketing program for as long as Misplay has been in existence. And getting the opportunity to move into that mid funnel or even top of funnel channels and tactics is something that I'm really excited about.
Well, you mentioned that measurement is going to be challenging. CTV gonna do this.
Absolutely. Incrementality testing is one of the 5 main pillars of our UA strategy this year. And when I was interviewing with Misplay, when I joined the team, part of what I was really excited to bring to the program, and I think what Misplay was excited to have me do, was to bring this practice of constant high velocity incrementality testing to kind of take you back a little bit on the journey of how I got to where I am. 5 years ago, I felt like incrementality testing was going to be the next big thing in UA. I wanted to find the smartest person I knew who was doing it. I actually thought I wanted to build an in-house team. So I thought I was going to make an internal hire. Thought I wanted to find like a data engineer and an econometricist to do a bunch of things I didn't know how to do. And I ended up getting connected to this guy, Zach Epstein. I thought I was going to hire him. I went into this coffee shop thinking it was an interview. And what it ended up being was a sales pitch. And he was like, hey, I'm building this brand. We don't have a product yet. We don't even have a website. But here's why I think I'm the best at what I do. And in half an hour, I was like, I'm sold. You get my money. You win the prize. So he founded a company called House Analytics, which I'm sure many of you have heard of in the space. I was, I think, their 3rd paying customer. I have used them ever since at every company I've gone to since then. They have been the first vendor that I hired. When I started at Misplay, we brought them on board by day 60 of me being there. I'm about 6 months in. We're wrapping up our 5th incrementality test. So really, really high velocity. And for a program that has only ever understood its efficacy off of last touch attribution, it's really uncovering some interesting stuff for us that is probably going to fundamentally change our media mix and how we spend money. So we're going to move from this place of just having last touch attribution, which I think is only a tiny sliver of what's actually happening, to having a triangulated measurement approach. So one side of that 3-sided triangle will be last touch still. We're not going to get rid of that. Then side 2 is incrementality testing results. We're going to incrementality test every single channel at least twice a year, once in low seasonality, once in high seasonality. And then the third side of that triangle, third point of that triangle, whatever the triangle metaphor is going to be user self-reported data. So how did you hear about us surveys? So we're going to survey a chunk of our users after they onboard to Misplay to ask them where they heard about us. And that may sound a little weird to some of you listening, because users are notoriously unreliable about where they.
Of course,
they
all the time.
Yes, but when I've done this before in prior companies with like a 10% confidence interval, users are actually pretty good at remembering where they saw your ad if you ask them within like day 1 of install. And so those 3 data points will help inform a quarterly reattribution framework, where we say, for example, if channel A is driving 100 installs, let's just say, to use nice even numbers, through last touch data, but the incrementality test says it's only 50% incremental. So maybe that would only be 50 installs. And then the users report, 80 installs coming in through that channel. Okay, so we think we can triangulate to somewhere between 150 and 80. Great, let's land somewhere in the middle of those 3 data points rather than just taking one as fact. Now, those were really nice even numbers. It's never going to be that perfect, but I share that to say that I think our measurement stack is just going to continue to evolve. Incrementality testing is going to be an always on motion for us. Like I said, every channel at least twice a year in every geo is going to get tested. And then hopefully, at some point, maybe in 2026, we'll move towards some type of an MMM model or another element of measurement. For this business, an MMM is not right for us right now because we've changed so much in the last year. It really wouldn't give us a lot of new information, but I hope we get to the point where we are able to add that 4th measurement data point into our mix.
Cool. I mean, you mentioned incremental 5 incremental since you joined. Can you mention each of these and how it kind of works, if you can?
We can definitely talk about them. So the incrementality testing that we do is causal inference DMA-based testing. And that is a bunch of really fancy econometrics words that I couldn't possibly explain to you. Again, please look into House Analytics if you want more information. But to explain it in layman's terms, what you're doing is you're taking your marketing spend on the channel you want to test, and you're turning off your marketing in certain DMAs. DMA is just a geographic area. And you're keeping your marketing on in other DMAs, and you're measuring the difference between the two. And in theory, if your marketing is super incremental, it's going to drive a bunch more installs or conversions in the cell where the media is on versus the cell where there's no media. If the channel is not that incremental, there's not going to be a huge difference between the test cell and the control cell. That makes sense?
No, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. So in the tests that we've done so far, we started our tests in order of priority from highest channel spend to lowest channel spend. So we started with the potentially the spiciest channels to test, the ones that could really shake up our media mix. And what we've learned so far, no surprise to I think any of us on this couch or probably anyone listening, is that some channels tend to cannibalize other channels and take kind of more credit than they deserve. The biggest publishers out there, the ones that sit in the most prominent positions in that user's install journey, tend to take the most credit. And so what we've learned is we could probably pull back in some of those channels and spend up in other channels that actually are the thing that drive the user to make that action, even if in the last touch framework, it wouldn't be attributed to that channel. Do you want to chime in and add anything else?
No, I think you kind of hit all the major notes there. But I think, at the end of the day, I think it's just about just continuing to get 10% better at our measurements. We're just starting this journey, right? We just, 5 tests and we got, as I said, a robust UA stack. So, I think it's, really well said.
You mentioned you have 5 pillars in UA.
Yes.
Was that the other 4?
Oh my gosh, you're testing me here. I don't have my slides to pull up. Let's see if we can come up with them. Yeah, so creative
strategies, signals, incrementality.
And the 5th one is like BAU optimization, making things, we call it 10%.
Yeah.
So make sure we have the right butts in the right seats, the right people in the team, reorienting how work is distributed, making sure that we're moving as fast as we possibly can, thinking about AI tooling for measurement. Like that's really about just like the 5th pillar is just making what we were already doing 10% better.
Mention signals.
Yeah.
Brett's your guy. Let's talk about signals.
That's my favorite.
Let's jump in. Yeah, so I think now what we're relying on mostly is a mixture of client signals. So Misplay is a very unique, not only signal, so it's a mixture of some of those signals super far, which are really, really and then we've also started to roll out predictive signals, which is kind of become our big for is really getting better at PLTV, and we've done it really well so far. Yeah, our PLTV is yeah. I mean, in broad strokes, we take a bunch of signal, mixture of misplay signal. So, how are they interacting with our various actions that they're taking, various times that they're spending in various parts of the app, and also so it's I've seen PLTV done a few different ways, but I think this is definitely the most scalable. Okay. Yeah, so it buckets. Yeah. No, so it outputs is like essentially 3 bits. So basically like 3 bits for users. It's actually within pretty tight. So very few false positives. Yeah, I mean it basically just puts it as one of those 2. Exactly. Yeah, and you can run it on. Yeah.
The other interesting thing about signals that Brett has done a really phenomenal job like building to sub is, while this sounds very complicated, and it is, really cutting down to like the truest value that we can get to. So for us, the most valuable users either spend a ton of time in our client games or they spend money in our client games. And ultimately, Brett and the team have worked on these signals that blend those 2 things together. So saying either that's a good user and we're willing to pay a bunch of money for them if they're really engaged, or they're a good user if they are willing to spend a bunch of money, or if they do both of them, that's even better. Yes.
Yeah, both, and then but that's very small.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think gaming has probably the biggest power law out there, right?
Yeah,
So.
I would think so. And certainly because I've worked in other industries where I said this is my first gaming, I've never seen this kind of a difference between the quantity of probably low to medium quality users and the quantity of high quality users.
Yeah.
The only other time that I've seen this, and it was not this extreme, but in dating apps, I think there is a very small segment of people who spend a ton of money and time in dating apps. Yeah. And then the bulk of the people spend very little time and almost no money in dating apps and come and go as they please. I worked in dating apps in 2017 and 2018. So to be fair, it was a very different time. But I think that gaming and dating apps are not too dissimilar.
Yeah, that's true. You segment players.
So I think to your point, segment users, I think there's like two pieces to that. It's like what to clients, right? And that's really where we're singular. So then there's also the other consideration. Where do we say? Yeah, the system, right? So it's a bit complex and we're really seeing the time we're spending. So the segmentation is system. But then I guess in terms of geos, I mean, we're really trying to focus on US, especially in Korea. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean,
we have a lot of Korean.
Nice. Yeah, for sure. I mean, Korea's been, it's scaled up to investment in terms of geos right now. We're seeing really successful. This place, so it's kind of a win. And I think the high Android penetration is a lot of optionality in terms of testing. Yeah, and in terms of just kind of like breadth of the strategy. Yeah.
I will say with Korea, though, I think we learned something really important in the first half of this year that now we're trying to take to other geos that hopefully is relevant for some of your watchers or listeners, which is, and I knew this was going to be a problem. I did not realize how meaningful this could be, is true culturalization and localization. And what I mean when I say that is not only are we running ads in Korean in Korea, but we have a local Korean UA manager who's incredible. We have a local Korean designer who's incredible. And we have gift cards in our shop. So Misplay, you play games, you earn money, you can convert those into gift cards. Gift cards for things that Koreans actually want. So for example, there is a really, really popular kind of version of Sephora in Korea, but it's way better. It's called Olive Young. And great skincare. I know, and that's really a hot take coming from me. Yeah, I know. I went out to Korea in March to meet with our team, and I truly my soul left my body in Olive Young. I don't know what happened in there. I didn't look at the bill. It was great.
Don't tell my wife.
I know. Yeah, incredible. But we realized that we could create this kind of closed loop user journey where in our ad creative, we could show somebody leveraging Misplay to get an Olive Young gift card. We could send a signal to the platform of saying, hey, if a user is going to make a lot of in-app purchases, that's a good type of user. We could then funnel those Korean users who came from the Olive Young ad into experiences in Misplay that were most likely to get them points. And then we were telling them, hey, you can basically cash out those points for an Olive Young gift card. And here's exactly how you do it, and here's where you do it. And creating that really culturalized loop in our UA has skyrocketed the efficacy of our marketing. And so now we're trying to say, hey, how can we replicate that in other geos? Even though it's expensive to have full-time hires in other countries, it honestly proved to be really worth it in Korea.
Yeah, especially in Korea. You need to know the local market.
Right. I can do all the TikTok research I want. I'm never going to be Korean. I'm never going to be able to speak Korean or understand the cultural nuances there. And so having those two full-time hires really makes a lot of difference.
So, like, what's the actual creative strategy besides for Korea?
You just mean yeah. So I think, like, in the broadest sense, I think our creative strategy is like two main pillars. It's really doubling down on our core demo and what works for them, and then really trying to project that. So that plays well into also when we think about what works for them. Yeah, I mean, right now we're finding, like, I mean, it's not going to come as a surprise to I see. I would actually modify that a bit. I think it's like GC with so it's a nice. We're taking a placement specific. That's been my we're starting to do. Is really looking at things from not only a channel, placement specific. Because saying,
tell me more.
Yeah, because I mean, saying something works on Facebook, it's just. I mean, like, when you look at it, creative is a major level we're targeting in. I'm just using C's or partners that have multiple inventory types. The type of creative they put in front of the user, or sorry, they put into the campaign, can really kind of like target you into different segments of inventory, right? So I think when we think about Facebook, you know, crafting or having a different take on maybe the same concept for feeds than you would for reels, right? Because that's two different kind of user experiences.
There's also different
Exactly.
Older.
Exactly.
I will also, as Brett's boss, toot his horn for a second, because I know he won't compliment himself in this regard. He has done such a fantastic job of bringing an incredibly analytical approach to creative strategy. And typically, like, you don't see that level of granularity and attention to detail with creative. I've run creative teams before where it's like, we think it works with a red background, so let's just do it. But what Brett and his team under him and our amazing creative director, Frank, have done is we've been working with AppsFlyer to kind of make a Misplay'-ified version of their creative tagging tool, where every element of our creative is tagged differently. The hook, the actor, was it a humorous concept? Was it serious? Was it spicy? Was it funny? Was it anything under the sun? And then we're able to use that tool to analyze creative performance down to that granular level. So now we're able to look back at our data and say, and we just did this data poll, so I know this for a fact. In Q1, the best creatives across the board were ones that were, no surprise, a little spicy, a little bit of a hot take. Negative creatives worked really well for us. Creatives featuring one particular actress worked super, super well. And so now we're saying, okay, do we want to explore a longer term partnership with that actress? How do we bring these kind of negative or kind of saucier hooks to more of our creative? How can we learn really down to like the individual granular level of the component parts of each piece of creative, the platform they put in, the placement that they were in that platform to really inform how we move forward. So it really is that detail oriented.
It sounds like tons of data, but then how can you process so much? How does that translate into any types of brainstorming sessions and then even creative testing? Because it's just like my just exploded from listening.
Yes. One thing that I really like about how we do like creative brainstorming at Misplay is to take us back a step. When I was coming on board at Misplay, I felt really bullish about the idea that I wanted creative and UA to be one team underneath me. So I kind of smushed them into one, and just put them all together. And like I said, we have an incredible creative director. He has a whole team under him, and I have these UA guys on the UA side, and we put everybody into one team. And once a month, we do this meeting called the UA Creative Review. And I really like this meeting. I haven't seen a lot of other people do this type of meeting super well. So what happens in the meeting is Brett and his team will pull together insights from each platform and each geo as to what performed the best in the past month. Because we do this creative tagging and we're really diligent with our tagging, we know one asset, how it performed across every platform. And so that meeting is both to look at the actual performance of that creative, but we also use that as time to brainstorm. And so we'll say, hey, everybody bring any idea that you saw on TikTok or Instagram or even Google Ads, screenshot it, copy the link, bring it to that meeting, and let's figure out what we want to do for the next month. And so, right, my FYP is going to look a lot different than Brett's FYP. It's going to look a lot different than your FYP. And so by kind of crowdsourcing this group of about 20 people, we're able to actually get like a ton of ideas about what could potentially work for us just by looking at what we're all seeing out in the world. And so it's pretty low lift brainstorming. We're not asking people to start from ground zero and say like, come up with a creative that would work great, right? It's really hard to do that. But by saying, hey, once a month, we're going to want you to come up with, 2 or 3 awesome TikToks you saw in the last month. That's actually a lot easier to do. And for us, produces a lot wider of a breadth of options to choose from.
Which then translates into so many ideas. People just bring free ideas, and how do you produce them and how to test them afterwards?
Well, it's always a challenge, right? I think to build on what Noah was saying, I think it's as our job as like leads within the UA team is to make sure that we're providing the structure and like really simplifying things for everybody else on the team. So taking a lot of those insights that we're pulling, so setting up automations in Slack to get to send wins and so it's really just enabling them with the data and then really kind of locking in local best practice so that is just sort of, or it just becomes a goal essentially. When we start to brainstorm, it should always do what we consider. That's not to say though that we don't want swings. So you kind of get yourself into get blinders on the same thing again. So it's a mix of both. It's really kind of setting those rails, but then also forcing the team to kind of think outside the box.
Okay, but then how do they actually test?
Right, and then testing is its own,
it's kind of all fun.
My opinion on creative testing has changed, numerous times over my time in UA. But I think right now what we're focused on is trying to find scalable assets.
Okay.
Right? I think that's our main thing. Like we had been going with a model of A/B testing everything, trying to get some level of significance, and then rolling those out into our BAU campaigns. But what we're finding is that if you're able to find that incremental winner in terms of whatever you're measuring towards, whether it's conversion rate, whether it's IPM, that's not always going to be the most scalable asset. And that's at the end of the day what we find, right? So I think there's 2 streams of creative testing right now in Misplay. So we do like BAU scale testing. So what we'll do is we'll take all the assets that we produce, right? And we do this typically on a weekly basis. We'll test them on Facebook and we'll test them on APAC, right? In batches to give them, a little bit of a chance. Yeah. We typically group things thematically.
Okay.
So we'll kind of like have one like master concept that has like 4 versions of it. We'll test those all together. And we'll just put them into a single ad group on Facebook ads, for instance. Take the top scaler, mix it into our similar sort of thing on AppLovin, but obviously just on the campaign level instead of ad set level. And then what we'll do is once we find creative wins, so creative wins are only really kind of what we see scaling and producing at a high level towards our goals once we find something that works really well, then it's about breaking apart that creative as we kind of go through these sessions where we try to pull out all the individual attributes that could be leading to success, and then we test those, and then we do the A/B testing on the back end to validate.
Can you give me an example? I'm just trying to figure out how you find a pretty winner, which is amazing. Then you want more of it.
Yeah.
Ideal scenario.
Yeah.
So almost never happens.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, as an example, I mean, just in terms of like finding a creative win and then turning it into iteration. So, I mean, we've found one specific ad that's worked really well that has sort of, as Noah was saying, like a negative sentiment to it, right? It starts off with a hook, I should have downloaded the Misplay app, right? Yeah. And then, exactly. It's just kind of like, super off the cuff, but it's worked really well. And what we've been able to do is take that and turn it now into, I think, 8 top performers or top winners with different, different bodies. So we'll take a modular approach, right? We'll switch out the body. We'll do the same hook with different creators or different actors. And it's worked. And we've localized it into a few different languages now, and it's worked really well at all of them. So there's really something to that. It's just, as Noah said, like negative sentiments, being a little bit edgy. Totally.
We've also, like we said, so create is one of our 5 pillars of the year. We are goaling ourselves off of this exact thing Brett is describing. So every quarter or every half, we have to have a certain number of winners, creatives that move from that test campaign into that BAU campaign. And we have to have a certain volume of total creatives tested. Therefore, we are goaling ourselves off of continuing to do this. We never let it die. I know it can be very overwhelming to do this kind of creative testing at scale. It is easy to get fatigued by it. But I felt really strongly that we needed to hold ourselves accountable for actually doing it and for finding these winners. And so when I came on board and redid all of our goals, that became an integral part of a successful.
Find these.
We are betting that we know what we're doing and that the team can produce. You have
the processing place.
We do most of our creative production in-house.
Everybody should always have at least 10-20% of creative concepts. But as always, I can understand. It's something different. Always seeing this. This is the best game ever.
And I think that is the problem with UGC now, is that it has become so commoditized and so overdone that it stopped feeling authentic to people. And so finding the ways to create UGC in ways that do feel genuine to people is really challenging. We're no longer in 2020 when every UGC asset just crushed. People are so used to it. They're inundated with it all the time. They're constantly scrolling through bad UGC. So to stand out as good UGC is genuinely pretty challenging. Oh my God. Don't even get started on that.
Do you use AI?
We do. On the creative side, we are sort of we're using mostly for localization purposes. Taking time. But I think there's a lot of just really bullish on it. I think it's just something that still feels. I think that's the great point that I think is like authenticity is something that we're starting to really push for in our business. It's like, imitation UGC just doesn't happen. It's got to be like really
something different.
Exactly. Especially on like TikTok and Reels specifically, I would say like you really have to have something that like blends in a way to the user, right? So I think it's because users can see that acting model.
When it comes to AI for UA, that's a hard set of letters to say in the right order. I think the practical application of AI is much better served right now in 2025 for kind of root cause analysis and creative analysis. So exactly what we're doing with AppsFlyer is using this like AI powered model to take apart our creatives and tag them. I think like Segwise has a really great tool out right now. We're not leveraging it, but it is pretty great in terms of like root cause analysis. So looking at week over week changes in your UA data, what caused the changes to happen? Was it creative? Was it channel mix? Was it CPM? Whatever. I think Gen AI creative is going to be slower to get to be really good for UA than either of those other two applications. I think it's really hard to create, especially video assets that leverage AI, that feel real and genuine and honest to people. I think AI right now for us is best used, like Brett was saying, in dubbing, in voiceovers, in stitching two pieces of creative together. But I've yet to see like a soup to nuts, really good Gen AI creative that does feel authentic.
Yeah. Well, I don't think that it feels authentic, but there are some interesting use cases in Forex games that I use AI, which obviously has nothing to do with the game. But I mean, it's insane. I mean, it's actually, it works because it's new. People are really curious to see, but it's not.
Absolutely. The one thing that I think more people should do when it comes to AI with creative is figure out how users are currently experiencing it out in the world and then like bringing it to their ad stack. So one of the things that Brett has done really well and his team has done really well is we know that AI voiceover in organic TikTok is something that works really well. People will like write out a script and then have the AI voiceover kind of read it. And that is like such a trendy thing right now on TikTok. It feels like really native to that platform. People like recognize the AI voices, kind of like as classic, like story time, kind of settling with your popcorn. You know, you're about to get a really good story. And we've taken that and brought it to our ads. And so now we have these, we call them story time. That's where they are AI voiceover. And it doesn't sound like a human, but it's not supposed to. It sounds like the organic TikTok content that has AI voiceover in it. And so that is authentic. Authentic doesn't necessarily mean that it has to sound like a human. It's that it has to feel authentic to the users and like what they're getting in organic content.
Okay, so what's next for Misplay? What should we look forward to?
I mean, aside from everything we've talked about in terms of iOS, I think 2025 is going to be a huge year for us, just continuing to double down. As I mentioned before, really so really making sure that we're a team possible. I think that's the singular focus. So I think that, as we talked about, through a few pillars, right, continuing to get more advanced with signal and sort of leverage that more. Creative strategy, I think we've done a lot of good work there. We're just going to continue to get 10% back. And the other pillars too, incrementality, it's going to be a major shift in this process. And I think those are
in addition to all of those UA things, which I am very excited about, I would say just in general as a brand, we're really trying to think about how we can bring more joy to users' lives. So something that got me really excited about the brand when I was interviewing here, because I had come from, like I said, fintech. My most recent company, I was head of Text Now, a low-cost phone service. Telecom, fintech, not a whole lot of joy there, right? Those seem really like utility companies. And something that got me really fired up about Misplay is that it's gaming, which is something that's really joyful with rewards on top of it. Like, wow, like double joy. Like, how cool is that? And so we're trying to figure out how else we can infuse that into the business with different products. We're really ramping up programs like sweepstakes to put more money back in the pockets of users, thinking about how we can delight them, surprise them with different prizes, different value offerings, different partnerships, different products. Obviously, we're bringing everything about Misplay Android to iOS, which is really special. But expect more joy-related things from us in the future.
Thank
Thank you.
Also a great platform.
please take your phone out, go to the App Store, Misplay. If you could actually click on an ad, I would really appreciate it. Please don't switch it organically. Please click on an ad. Thank you. Thank you.